Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Prupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. There's this idea in content creation which you don't actually tell people what it is because you can use it forever. So, but now you know it was recorded on a Sunday. Any Sunday, any day of the week, you can create your own reality. So, how's that? Julie, we brought up this idea of creating a genius zone in your marriage. So, what does that mean, particular or specifically?
So, interestingly enough, there is, I guess, 3 zones that you can be in.
Let's give credit. We didn't actually come up with this.
We did not come up with this.
Let's just be very
I think the beauty is that, we all know that Jacob reads a ton, like all day, all night long. And so there's an amazing book that was recommended by our business coach, and it's called...
Who's her? Let's shout out to her also.
Of course.
I want you to screw up her last name. So
heck no, I'm all about the cultural references. Okay, so Geeta Nadkarni is our business coach, and she is awesome. Her and her team have helped us tremendously. But besides that, she gives us tons of recommendations for books. And one of the best books that we've read so far is The Great Leap. Who is it by?
Gay Hendricks.
So he's awesome. And so he speaks about the zones of genius. So there's 3 zones of genius. The first one, can you actually tell us about that?
There's the zone of incompetence where you're doing stuff that you're not good at. There's the zone of, there's 4. There's the zone of competence where you're doing things that you are not, you can do, right? Then there's the things called, and this is the big one, the zone of excellence, right? Where you're doing something that you're really good at, and everyone's like, keep doing that.
You are good at.
Right.
People tend to want you to stay in that zone because you are really great at it, and you're probably building somebody else's business off of your zone of excellence.
Correct.
Except that you're not completely passionate and love doing that. So you're really good at it, but you're not in your zone of genius. You're still in your zone of excellence.
So the zone of genius is the part that scares you, right? Where you're actually walking out and doing a lot of things where you don't know how it's going to go. You're actually afraid of the outcome. But the way that you know that you're in your zone of genius is that you are completely present, right? And this is, again, let's go into that. You and I both, for a lot of our times, have suffered from a lot of really negative thinking, candidly.
Yeah.
And so, And so some of the different ideas of what creates negative thinking is think about what other people think of you, think about the past, and think about the future. And 9 times out of 10, if you're in a place that is very, very frustrating, you'll find that you're thinking about the past. If only I hadn't messed that up. If only I hadn't missed that opportunity. If only I hadn't done that thing. I mean, how much in marriage, frankly, is thinking back about if only I hadn't said that, or if only I hadn't done that, or maybe you feel like you've done certain things in your marriage. I mean, this is a crazy thing that I've seen with clients of mine is when they start to realize just how messed up they made their marriage and how they made their spouse feel like the S word, right? Then they're like, they can't even own that. So that's like feeling about, being bad about the past. Then there's like worrying about what other people think. And then there's worrying about the future, what's going to happen X, Y, and Z. So whenever you have that kind of a situation, that's how you know you're not in your zone of genius and you're suffering.
Right. And when you are in your zone of genius, I think it's a lot about feeling that state of flow, which a lot of people talk about. And it's hard to be like, am I ever in it? I think that it's, if you're in it, you know you're in it,
Right.
Right? I think if you're wondering... I'm gonna bring this reference. Everyone's gonna be like, "This is not appropriate." But it's like when people. Okay, so
I'm getting nervous now.
You should. I'm saying it's like having an orgasm. Honestly, it's like if you're wondering, did I have one? Then you probably didn't, because when you have one, you know you've had one.
I think
I'm gonna go there because I feel like this is really
we've now
what
just
it's
differentiated
about.
ourselves in the realm of at least. Let's say Orthodox Jewish marriage coaching. That's okay, great. Okay.
But I'm just saying, I think that if you're in the zone of genius, you know that you're there because you're flying, and it just feels different, and it's very it's a visceral feeling, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of those. Okay. So that's how you know if you're there. There's really no questions whether or not it happened. Maybe you're wondering if the other person had that experience. Could be. But in general, you know that it's happened or not, and that it's very true for you and it's very real for you. And I think, watch this, this is where in marriage we get completely freaking lost. And the reason why we get lost is the following. Because when we are in our heads in marriage, we're worrying about our own needs, worrying like, if I kid you not, and again, just very candidly, like if you hear this is your story, I talk to a lot of people and I've done this also. But sometimes we feel, think about this, where I don't want to be nice to you because I don't think you deserve it. So in a lot of ways, I'll be so pissed off that I didn't get what I wanted, right? That I will not think that you deserve me being nice to you. So I'll set up this like chessboard playing around, like I'll give you a little bit of this if the other thing we talked about, we did this.
See, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys, I have no clue what you're talking about right now because I don't do that. I think it just shows you, like, when you think you've been married for such a long time or you've been with your partner for such a long time, you're like, oh, I know everything about them. The idea is you need to realize you don't know the deep inner workings of your spouse or your partner. And the point is that the way that you get into that zone of genius, I would say, is to really be curious and realize, like, I actually don't know everything. And that's what keeps your marriage alive. Once you start thinking, I know everything about this person. Oh, I know that story. I mean, I know, obviously, there are so many stories out there. I'm like, oh, I've heard that one, about which one?
No.
Trying to take his old car up that
on,
hill in San Francisco or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, but the idea is to bring your marriage and your partnership into that zone of genius. Always be curious. Always be wondering, what is he really thinking? And maybe you need to ask to do that, because what you're saying is like, I had absolutely no idea what you're saying.
This is just pretty much for us, not
but
for anyone else.
I'm learning something new anyways. So
well, I think that there's a definite scarcity mentality that a lot of us have when it comes to marriage. Again, in operating the idea for intimacy, it's like you have to try to set everything up so that it's perfect, or you have all these expectations on someone. They didn't even pick up that that's what you want. And so you're always, again, the most difficult thing is to articulate yourself and actually put. This is one of our heroes, Brene Brown, is always talking about this idea of vulnerability. Vulnerability sucks if you're actually doing it. Again, just going back to Julie's previous analogy, right? It actually is difficult because it's like hard. You can't really plan it. You have to be able to just put it out there and see what happens, and have enough faith in yourself and in humanity, in the universe, so to speak, that it'll happen, or you'll be strong enough if it doesn't happen. And so being able to actually go out and not try to set your spouse up for this information or, work your way, but actually just to say, like, this is what I want, and have enough trust in yourself to know what you want and be able to articulate it. Are we still like completely, don't understand what we're saying?
No, I definitely understand. I think I get what you're saying now. I feel that doing all those tasks, like doing the mundane, doing the specific details of trying to connect in a real way and trying to give in a real way, I think those pieces are super important, are the things that are going to bring you to that place where you feel like you're gelling, you're jiving. Jiving? Is that even a word?
It's a word.
It's like blaring what we were talking about
Thank
earlier. Anyway, so that is what I think that's what brings.
But let's push it more like more intensely.
Okay.
What's this idea of a genius zone that people can actually do, or that we've actually tried in marriage? Because we've been married for you look like an idiot, but no, see, I just judge myself. So don't judge yourself. I don't remember. I don't focus on details. I don't know how long we've been married, but I know it's been over 16 years. Is that accurate? 17?
You're about to give me a massive present because we're going to be married 15 years next summer.
Okay,
so that's
there
like
it is.
15,
1-5. It's always a big one.
But, no, right now it's 14.
Okay, 14 years.
He's never been good at math.
Please don't shake my camera. But anyway, so the idea is that in 14 years we've been in our flow state for little periods of time.
Well, chunks. There have been chunks that
right.
we have, but most recently, the reason that we've been able to get there, I would say, is because we've both taken the initiative and it's like.
Okay, that's big. Slow that down. What does that mean, taking the initiative?
Well, taking responsibility for what we want to create.
Right. So one of the ideas that Gay Hendricks talks about, I'm going to be so embarrassed I screwed up his last name, is this idea.
I think that's his name.
I think it's his name, right. This idea that.
Also, totally welcome to everybody who's joining us.
Thank you very much for watching. We genuinely appreciate it, and gonna do that. But the idea he speaks about is, and I have this feeling again. I'm going to share something that I haven't shared with the audience or anyone else. I would pray before I was like, this is a genuine prayer, which is just coming from my soul. It wasn't orchestrated, and I would pray at times. I could feel confident at certain times. I know when I was confident when I was on. When I was younger, I had a lot of anxiety, social anxiety, especially around girls. And there'd be times where I feel like I was on fire. Thank you. And other times I felt so embarrassed.
I think that's cute.
Aww. But anyway, I would feel so embarrassed. And I just would hope that I'd be able to show up as that confident Jacob that people liked. And then I would always like freak out. It's like asking someone on a date or something like that. So what's really interesting was, and I didn't realize this until I was reading the book like literally a day ago, that's our higher self. And from times we will like click into that and then we'll fall out of it. We're really scared. We want to find that. But the reality is you can actually cultivate that and you can at least acknowledge when it's there. So there have been times in our marriage where we have been in that higher place, that flow state, that zone of genius.
Yeah.
But it was like so good, but it was scary because we didn't know how to replicate that. And we kind of fall out of it.
Yeah, we thought that was just like a fleeting thing. And it wasn't something that we're producing, that it just automatically happened like a lucky thing.
Right. And I think that when you see that, when you feel that, when you're, again, like using Julie's orgasm analogy, right? When you have the actual experience, it is so transformative that you always want to be back that place. In a lot of ways, it almost creates like that addiction where, you have that like explosion of inspiration and then you kind of fall out and all you want to do is get back to that. And it's such an addictive thing. And it's very frustrating because like out of your hands, you don't know how to, everyone leave all the analogies alone, please. It's very difficult because you don't know how to get back there because you feel like you just kind of stumbled onto it. And then it's in a lot of ways, and I say this about religion also, is it's like when you get those moments of inspiration, you spend your whole life trying to go back and look for that. But it's so annoying because like the day in and day out, like just sucks if you feel like you're just like waiting for it to happen.
Well, what I would say about that is that the point of inspiration is not to last forever. The point of inspiration is really to show you. It's kind of like that flashlight turning on and showing you the road ahead of what you can
I want to argue with you.
create.
Can I argue with you?
You can
Is that okay?
always argue
I do.
with me.
Okay. So first of all, I'm radically, just candidly, because we're all friends here, I'm candidly revisiting a lot of the stuff that I used to teach students. And so this whole idea about inspiration and then it falls apart and then you try to build, it's based on a certain teaching in a certain Jewish book, and it's totally true and it's wonderful. I found it to serve me less. I'm going to tell you what I read today, which served me a lot more, not today, recently, and I've been developing this myself, which is this idea that you can choose to see how long you want to spend in that zone of genius. So in this guy's book, he's talking about you in your creative mind. So you have to make that commitment. How many hours a day do you want to feel like in that creative space, that you want to feel like you're in the zone, so to speak? And so if you just tell yourself, well, it's there and it's off and it illustrates, like, that's possible, but it's that same unempowering narrative that we've been really suffering with for a long time. What do you think about that?
I was just more thinking like an orgasm can't last forever. I was taking it very literally.
Right. Well, again, we could speak about biology and people. Eventually, certain people get tired.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe we should stop with the analogy. Okay.
Okay, you're doing a great job. Boy, how do we pick that up from there? So zone of genius.
So okay.
Tips. Go ahead.
What you're saying is that you can actually maintain that level.
That's the point.
Okay.
That's the point. You have to
so
make that
tell us
commitment.
how.
Well, you
Tell
have to.
us how.
Okay, 100%. You have to make the commitment, right? You have to make the commitment. I spoke with a client of mine, and we were talking about how again it was that same sort of like dichotomy where he felt like his wife didn't deserve his best self because she so hurt him in the past, and that's true. Like there's no denial that marriage can hurt a lot. And you could be very angry at your spouse. And you can be very angry at yourself for letting yourself get run
So
over.
I guess you could say that if you're trying to get to that zone of genius within your marriage, you definitely can't come with feelings of resentment.
We call that the bag of S. That a lot of times people will carry around bags that justify the trashy way they can treat their spouse because of all the crap their spouse has done. And they almost get excited finding the places where the spouse has dropped the ball so they can add more.
Well, not even that, but like you're almost like, forget this. You
kind of
like want them to forget so that you have like more ammunition.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. 100%.
Okay, so how do we? I guess that's the
first of all, you have to put
gotta. It's like a ladder. It's a rung that you're. First of all, if you want to get to the top, it's like you got to get on the ladder.
Right. So
if you have baggage, you're not even on the ladder.
Well, it's hard to climb a ladder when you're holding a bag of S.
Exactly. So you got to take off that
bag.
You got to take
the bag off. Right. So that's where we talk about my rabbi and yours, Jocko Willink, who's a leadership, whatever. He's great. Look him up. So Jocko always talks about this idea of extreme ownership, which is that at the end of the day, you have to take responsibility for the fact that your marriage isn't going the way you want. And I know that sucks because it's so easy to look at your spouse and you're like, you are such a useless X, Y, and Z. But if you want your marriage to be great, realize that you're doing stuff that's wrong. You're doing stuff that's wrong. And again,
and whatever things that are bothering you, it's like if your spouse, I don't know, if your spouse spends an inordinate amount of time wasting time, or he or she doesn't do the task that they say they're going to do, or that you ask them to do and they say they will do. So there's just, I think there's always a place where people think like, well, no, but this piece is really his fault, or this piece is actually her fault. And what we're trying to say is that no, you really first have to examine yourself and what the dynamic and the energy that you're bringing out, because whatever energy that you're bringing out is the vibrational energy of the marriage.
Right. It could be that watching and wasting time is because you are so, again, procrastination for me, if you watch anything, procrastination is not a bad thing. Procrastination shows you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, right? So I'm a big procrastinator. It's like, no, you actually have like God showing you stuff that you shouldn't do, that you should outsource, right? Plug the book, read Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. But this idea that, you're procrastinating, you're putting out this low level, like crappy energy, and then you're super upset, like, oh, my spouse is watching, I don't know, what was some of your great binge-worthy shows? Like Julie can blow through, again, Fauda, that was one night. It was crazy, right? She blew through Fauda in one night. The Crown was like 3 days.
Wait. No, Fauda was both of us.
That's true. She cheated on me with Fauda though, because like I'll like pass out at like 3 a.m. and I'm like,
you gotta go hard.
I'll like wake up at 4 and I'm like, what are you doing? You're like, oh, sorry, slap the laptop shut. Anyway, but the idea is ultimately that if you are putting that energy out, your spouse is possibly picking that up. And again, so you can be and moan at your spouse and feel like they're crap or argue with them, which again we think that. But on the flip side, look and say, well, what am I doing? Where am I not doing tasks that really inspire me? Where am I not living up to the thing? As soon as we'll feed off of our down energy and our positive energy. So when Julie and I are like really committed to like working out, we're up. I wake up easier, right? But I'll be able to go and she'll jump up and then I'll know that I have to wake Julie up. Or the flip side is like, I'll eat pizza, then I'll see Julie eating pizza. So again, it was like the best. I was like, don't lose your vision of your goals. And you're like, you're the one that's eating the pizza right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, good point, right? So it's like, take really radical responsibility, even if you don't see how what your spouse is doing is like something that you're doing yourself. Like, recognize like you're putting out that kind of like low vibe, low energy, just by judging them. That's
and
that
the
itself.
only way we really know that is because we were totally there. So just to give you guys.
None of this is like theoretical.
It's not theoretical. But let's talk for a few minutes about just what does it feel like? What is that opposite feeling of we're actually really working together well? What does that look like for us?
I mean, it's just.
I know I feel it on a daily basis. Let's talk about.
That's called a rhetorical question.
Let's talk about.
She was
no, it wasn't. It actually wasn't.
That was great.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. No, just say it, and then I'll answer too.
I mean, for me, it's this sense that it's everything I ever wanted, and I think when we get married, we actually, again, I remember a rabbi of mine who told me like, marriage. He's like, you're lucky if it's a B. And I was like, that is so uninspiring. And again, I spent, maybe it averages out as a B, but overwhelmingly, it's like you spend a lot of time in the D zone, and then, you get some A's. So the idea is, like, what you really want is that idea that, like, we are flowing so well together, and that we don't want, again, that's like one of these sick things, is that oftentimes there's like a dichotomy that you think you like want to look for passion outside of your marriage. That's really not true. Most people want the passion inside their marriage. They just don't know how they have to get there. And so if you're able to actually find that, again, we're not talking about like the bedroom, although that's also a place that this, or probably the primary place this shows up. It's like in life, is your life passionate? Are you really enjoying yourself? Are you there? Are you excited to see your spouse? Are you excited to talk about stuff with your spouse? Or is it kind of a drag that you're just trying to manage with all of your other responsibilities? I think that's kind of the dichotomy as it shows up for me.
And I would say that the other piece, and first of all, by the way, guys, everyone who's with us, thank you so much, and totally pop some questions in the chat if you have any. But on that note,
you see that Julie's not afraid to talk about the things that most people don't talk about.
But on that note, I wanted to say that the more that you're able to combine, it's like each person of the partnership is kind of like a circle, a sphere. And the more you're able to combine and overlap on those spheres, it's like the things that are important to you, the more that it's not just a, I guess, partnership, or the more that it's not just the responsibilities. Because once that the partnership becomes just about responsibilities, like, are we paying the bills? Are we having the weekly meeting about the budget? Or are we just dealing with the kids' education? Or
that's not zone of genius. That's exactly
not
the point.
Zone of genius. I mean, those are things that have to get done. But if that's how you say that you're spending quality time with your spouse, you will see that it's not going to go far, right? Because it's really once you feel like you're expressing yourself, the person who you are, being able to grow together. Whether for us, I think that once we started working out together every morning, because we a couple of years ago, we always work out and we would never work out together.
I know, it was very parallel, as I say, parallel play. That's such a good psychological term. You've never heard that before.
Yes, I have.
Oh, that's so good.
Parallel play. That's what little kids do.
Yes. But anyway, I think that's an idea. And again, it was a lot. I meant that Julie had to sort of leave her yoga world that she was really enjoying, get a lot of benefit out of, and I had to leave my sort of masculine, I love the kickboxing and the jiu-jitsu and the weightlifting. And then again, for me, it was I'm just gonna be very honest. I was afraid it was gonna slow me down, right? But then the reality is, because I was had a proficiency in my methodology of working out, obviously. But
See, that's another thing that I actually never knew until the second about you thinking that.
Right, but again.
But then it's like being able to just being open enough to say I will try, because here when I started working out early in the mornings at the gym when it was still open. Okay, COVID, thank you. But when it was
not
open,
COVID.
I said,
it's the governor.
Hey,
it's the governor. It's not COVID. They're just shutting it down so they don't have businesses.
Anyways,
but that's okay.
We're not getting political. Okay. But I'm just saying, when I said try this class with me, you'll like it, and you were open enough to do that, and then we started literally going every single morning together. That was the beginning of saying, first of all, I'm inviting him into something that's important to me and that I enjoy, and he's willing to say, I'll give it a try, even though it wasn't the super masculine boxing or whatever.
And now all my Lululemon outfits are all thanks to her. That's the only pants I wear when I'm not wearing sweats. I guess they make sweats too. I could probably start buying Lululemon sweats. They're probably great sweats.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just saying, that is bringing your spouse into something that is important to you. And what if they really are not interested in what you're interested in? So then I would say another awesome thing is to be able to say, let's start something new together, because then you guys can both suck at it and nobody has to feel bad.
Right. I think that there is that. So again, the zone of there is a value making your own space and all that kind of stuff. I think nowadays people are so good at finding their own space and just kind of developing in their own heads and being able to watch their own shows, and you could literally live a completely parallel existence. And again, that opens you up to, when you do taste connection in those parallel existences that you're having with your spouse, you are super open to that. And again, now I'm see, I'll pull the rabbi thing also a little bit. There's an idea in Judaism that again, we have kosher meat, whatever it is. So we salt the meat because it draws the blood out. So if the blood is coming out of the meat, it's won't absorb stuff, right? But if it's not putting things out, then it's open to absorption. So the idea here that's very important is to realize that if you are on the same page and you are exerting this energy with your spouse, you're not going to suck in all the negative crap in the world. On the flip side, if you're not doing that, then you are going to be susceptible, and you don't want to be one of those idiots that thinks, oh no, this won't affect me, or oh no, this is, those kind of conversations are not going to draw me in. They will, and that's okay. Know that we are, either you're creating that passion with your spouse, or you're going to be getting it somewhere else. And know that your spouse is the exact same way. I know that we all think, no, our spouse has no passions, and our spouse is just pathetic, or whatever it might be, and I'm the only one that has needs. Not really. Just watch that. Go ahead. What were you thinking?
No, I think that sorry, we're having some comments.
Yeah. Oh,
so
good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So about finding that passion by
Right.
drawing people in. And again, that's also in terms
And
of
I think, people say, oh, but, well, exactly about things like, what about me? And what about the alone time? Or, making sure that this is not getting to a codependent level. I think that the codependence is not, no, it's definitely an issue in a lot of ways. But here we're talking about the opposite end of the spectrum of what if there's too much disconnection and too much
most people have disconnect.
much
I think
space.
most people have disconnect.
Especially, I think right now, I think everyone kind of went into their mode of just survival. And so I think in survival, you really draw inside of yourself versus being like, even though we're physically together, even though many people are physically together in the house, but everyone is almost like separate.
Right. And again, we get more and more separate the more that we keep our opinions to ourselves. And that's also super important. The more that we keep our judgments, that we're judging our spouses and we're thinking about our spouse, we're not like actually bringing that stuff to the table, because again, that's not the zone of genius. That's the safety zone. I'm excellent at just kind of like, putting my head out and making things happen. I'm excellent at like doing the laundry, right? Or whatever it might be. And that we're not opening ourselves up, then we're naturally just pulling ourselves apart. And I think that it also takes this idea of being honest with yourself. Is like, is this the life that I want? Is this the marriage that I want? Is this I think when we don't worry about the BS and the judgments and like the fear of what could happen if we change things, you always know whether or not this is good or not. And you could say, like, again, in the bedroom, in marriage, in business, in what you do for your job, if you actually just drop all the judgment, you know if it's good or not. You do, for sure. And you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe. Again, my wife had this like wonderful like insight to me today, which is that I'm not sure if that's a technical loss or an ideological loss. But
I think she lost your
my train of thought.
Yeah.
So I think,
that's okay. That happens to me all the time.
Right. So I think if you don't know if your marriage is on the right track or if your life's on the right track, you have gotten lost into a jungle gym of judgment, of self-judgment, where you're like not trusting yourself to know. You always know if this is what you want. I think that's the most important piece. But if you are sitting around judging yourself, thinking about in fear, what if I say this thing?
But it's not even about. I think that before there's judging yourself, I think there's also judging your spouse and judging your partner. So yeah, I think the way that you diagnose yourself on such a thing is when you find yourself like, oh my gosh, she's like this, or she's like, having a lot of judgmental thoughts.
The best, and again, this is gold, and take this, and I'm telling you, people pay me a crap ton of money to tell this to them over and over and over again, and I'll give it to you for free, right? Again, because it's not so easy to do, but it's a very fundamental principle, is that when you judge yourself, just admit what that costs you is getting any insight into why you're doing what you're doing, right? If you say to yourself, I suck, then just stop the conversation right there, because you're never going to get to figure out why you are displaying ineptitude or whatever it might be, right? If I feel panicky, I'm just a B word, right? I'm not going to ask the question, what about going on right now is creating the sense of panic? And if you don't judge yourself and rather just get curious, I feel scared, I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling disconnected from you. What is it that's creating this disconnection? It's amazing how crazy all of these answers just pop up to you. Why wasn't this good? And you think to yourself, well, I wanted X, but I didn't articulate it, right? Okay, so that's the answer why. So now it's not like a judgment thing. You actually got some inside information. Whether or not you want to take action on it, that's going to be up to you.
I couldn't have said it better. He is the master.
No, it's really not true. All my stuff I got from her. I think that we've been rolling for about a half an hour. From the bottom of our hearts, we profoundly appreciate what here's the deal. And I just will speak about, again, not again, I train coaches. It's a part that I'm very passionate about. It's not really the core thing that we do, but I realized as I build out more and more skills, again, we're just these nonprofit workers that have, thank God, been able to build a very large business. And the point is that she's special. I'm not special. You can all do this, right? But one of the very fundamental things that when my coaches start asking me, like, what about the call to action? Like, it's going to sound sales and all that crap. And here's the bottom line. Like, obviously, we do very high ticket level work with people. That being said, we really want to just give a lot of value. If you don't need the intensive work that we do, great. Don't take it. Not for you, right? That being said, I'm not going to feel any kind of a judgment on myself to say, if we could help you, if you are below sort of where you want to be, and again, I don't know that, you know that, you're the one living in your own life, in your own head, in your own marriage, right? Reach out to us. Clearly, my wife's going to be fantastic at helping that out, and I'll just try to sit on the sidelines and And I don't know.
Well, I would say, and also we have we are launching right now our Facebook group, so that we really hope that you join there, because we're going to be offering a ton of content so that we can give little pieces and nuggets to help improve all of our marriages.
Yes.
And partnerships, and relationships, whatever might be. Whatever you're in.
Namaste. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Have a great rest of your day. Whatever day.
There you have it, folks, another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.